The next topic will be on immigration, and Mr. Speaker, you will start after the videos. You have 2 minutes.
Charlie Crist and Marco Rubio. Let's talk about immigration, gentlemen. Governor Crist, you say that you want all Floridians counted in the census, including illegals. You also, in 2007, supported the McCain immigration reform plan, which offered a path to citizenship, which some called amnesty on immigration than you are.
I don't think so. Actually, I think we probably agree on this issue. He is the son of immigrants. I'm the grandson of immigrants. And I think the first thing we need to realize about immigration reform is to make sure that we seal the border. Everything else is an academic conversation unless and until we do that. I think steps have been made to try to enhance that recently, and that's a good thing. Secondarily, I think we need to make sure that we're enforcing the law. As a former Attorney General, laws on the books don't mean anything and have no consequences if they're not being enforced. And thirdly, I think that those who are already here shouldn't be advantaged by the fact that they got here illegally. If they have the opportunity to gain citizenship, they should go to the back of the line, go through the regular process, what the law requires, in order to attain their citizenship, just as my grandfather did and the Speaker's parents.
But you think that the immigration reform plans that were offered in 2007 by President Bush and John McCain, you still think those are pretty good ideas?
I don't think they're bad ideas. I think that those 3 principles, though, need to be underscored. Protecting the border, making sure that we enforce the law that's on the books, and that those people who may have gotten here illegally are not advantaged by having done so. I think it's very important, Chris, that in order to have legal immigration, we have to stop illegal immigration. As the grandson, as I said, of an immigrant, it's important to me personally, and I know it is to the Speaker.
Mr. Rubio, you say that you're against amnesty for illegals, but critics point out that as Speaker, you didn't bring to the floor several bills that would have cracked down on illegals and on employers who hire them. And you voted for a bill that would have allowed the children of illegals to pay the same tuition as in-state residents. Is Governor Crist tougher on immigration than you are?
It's not an issue about tougher. Just to address those issues regarding Florida, those bills, the only place they ever got a hearing was in the Florida House, and they didn't advance because the Senate didn't want to advance them. Governor Crist was governor at the time. He didn't have an interest in them as well. But those bills, the only place they ever got a hearing was
I had
in
an
the
interest
Florida.
in them. How can you say what my interest was?
Well, I never saw you speak out. Well, the only place they ever got a hearing was in the Florida House. Never got a letter from the governor. Never had him call our office.
But you didn't bring several of these bills to the floor.
Well, they never got out of their committees. They never got a hearing. But here's the most important.
Couldn't you have done more? Because that's what some
Well, we gave it a hearing. The support wasn't there among the membership at the time, and they were focused at that time on some very serious challenges in a 60-day session.
Did you send a letter to the committee chair so you wanted them to pass?
Let me move on and answer the question about immigration, because the Republican Party, I think, unfortunately, has been cast as the anti-illegal immigration party. It is not the anti-illegal immigration party, it is the pro-legal immigration party. And having a legal immigration system that works begins, as the governor says, with border security. By the way, that's not enough. About a third of the folks in this country illegally, interlegally, and they overstay visas. And so we've got to deal with that issue as well. We've got to deal with the employment aspect of it, because the vast majority of people who enter this country illegally do so in search of jobs, and jobs are being provided to them. So we need some level of verification system so that employers are required to verify the employment status of their folks. As far as amnesty, that's where the governor and I disagree. He would have voted for the McCain plan. I think that plan is wrong. And the reason why I think it's wrong is that if you grant amnesty, as the governor proposes that we do, in any form, whether it's back of the line or so forth, you will destroy any chance we will ever have of having a legal immigration system that works here in America.
Well, I can be definitely crystal and Pacific on this issue. I think it's important that individuals that are here undocumented are treated as undocumented individuals. They are here illegally. But I think that it's also important to understand, as a former state trooper, law enforcement officer, that it's not fair to law enforcement to be given the charge to remove 11 million to 14 million individuals from the country that are here undocumented. We must have comprehensive immigration reform in this country. I have voted for comprehensive immigration reform, making sure that we protect our borders, which is key, protect our borders, but also knowing who's in the country. I think it's important that individuals that are undocumented have a pathway to residency and then to citizenship. And I think it's important that we make sure that those individuals that don't comply by a comprehensive federal immigration law, that they're repatriated and that it's a pool that law enforcement can attack. Now, I think it's important, or removed from the country. I think it's important as this question of an Arizona law is mentioned here in Florida, that we understand the full ramifications of such a law. A, we have members of the Latino community that have served this country in the military. It is stomach-turning to the fact that individuals that I've seen in Iraq and Afghanistan that are carrying out the mission on behalf of this country will be asked for their citizenship status here in the state of Florida, and that some members of this U.S. Senate candidate pool encourage an Arizona law in Florida. I think it's important that we look at what is happening to Arizona now. Our tourism industry is $60 billion. Here in Palm Beach, it means a whole lot to this community. What's going to happen when people start to cancel their conventions in Florida? We're already hit by oil. We're already hit by 12% unemployment and higher in some parts of Florida. I think it's important that we take a very long look at this issue of enforcement. Being a past law enforcement officer, I will tell you, an immigration law such as the Arizona law will put law enforcement in a precarious position with a community that is growing in Florida and growing in this country. To prevent crimes and to solve crimes, it's important that law enforcement is able to talk to all segments of the community and not for one segment of the community to be targeted. Absolutely. Strong borders, making sure that we know who's in the country, making sure that individuals that are undocumented step forward, pay taxes, do the things that we do every day, and making sure that law enforcement has the tools that they need to be able to carry out and enforce the law. And I think it's very important to the state of Florida's future. I think it's very important how we handle this issue on the federal level.
And frankly, I don't blame anybody for wanting to come to America. I can even understand why somebody would break the law and sneak across the border to come to America. Of course, they don't have to do that. They just walk across because our borders aren't enforced. It is a simple fact that no nation, including this great nation, can sustain unlimited immigration to its shores. In fact, we have already become gravely weakened and endangered by the immigration policies that have held sway for most of my life. The people who established this great republic were people who were of European ancestry and heritage. In order for this country to survive and to be restored to any semblance of its former greatness, a permanent European-American majority must be galvanized in order to ensure the survival and well-being of the Republic. In the interest of this objective, it is necessary that we return to pre-1960s immigration laws and policies. It is necessary that we terminate policies that subsidize the birth rates of those who are not members of that European American majority that established this republic. And it is also essential that we begin to encourage the increase of immigration from European nations and from other nations where we have numbers of individuals of the Caucasian race. The Cuban people who had the means of escaping Cuba came to the closest place of refuge, which was Miami, the city of my birth. Within a very short period of time, the Cuban people who invaded peacefully the shores of South Florida, specifically Miami, they took over Miami, Florida, lock, stock, and barrel, and they continue to run Miami to this day. I don't blame them for doing what they did. I do blame our own State Department for actually helping to facilitate the Marxist revolution in Cuba that brought Fidel Castro to power. I do fault the New York Times, which in that period of time hailed Fidel Castro as the George Washington of Cuba. But I don't fault the Cuban people who came to Miami. I probably would have done the same.
This country was founded on immigration, is going to continue to be founded on immigration. And whether the immigrants come from Europe or South America is inconsequential to me. It should be inconsequential to every American, because we view Americans as individuals, not from one race or another. So with the one speaker, I just completely disagree wholeheartedly with the premise. But how do we fix the problem? I think the problem is that right now illegal immigration is incentivized and legal immigration is de-incentivized. They want you to come into this country legally because I believe at that point they have control over those individuals, like they had control over slaves during earlier parts in our history. So the first thing that I believe that we need to do is we need to make sure that we have a control of our border, but with the access to be able to come to this country legally. We also need to make sure that we are enforcing laws on corporations that hire people here illegally. We also have to make sure that the entitlement programs that we currently have in America are not given any benefit to people that are here illegally. We need to drive the conditions for people to come into this country legally, not illegally. With that being said, I think we do need to streamline the process for people to come into this country legally, and that we need to make sure that they have our culture, that they know what America is all about. And I think that any documentation that the government gives out should be done in English, and English only, because we do need to make sure that we have one language in this country, and that country is English. Even though people have the freedom to speak whatever language they want to have in their private lives, or even if they open up a business. However, when it comes to government documentation, and when it comes to government communication with individuals, that should be done in English. However, we need to make sure that we're giving the best and brightest people from around the world without quotas to come into this country. Thank you very much.
Once again, immigration is a 14th Amendment issue, just like all other Tea Party issues I've ever heard all come from the fruits of the poison tree of the jurisdiction of the 14th Amendment. And naturalization clause of the 14th Amendment is where immigration comes from. Thomas Jefferson's Declaration of Independence basically states people have a right to come here. On the same hand, I believe with talk show host Savage Nation, that language, borders, culture is important. So somewhere along the line, like Alex said, we need to streamline in some way that folks can come here, no matter what country they're from. The Declaration of Independence didn't specifically state we need a certain race of people have a right to come here. Just because we're already here and established doesn't give us a right to close the doors to others. But at the same time, we don't want terrorists and child molesters and folks like that trying to move in our homes, in our neighborhoods either. So, I mean, there needs to be some system better than just let them all jump the fence and come over here and get on welfare. I mean, they broke the state of California, making a public education system, pay for immigrants in the system that didn't respect the laws and stuff we had in place, even though they are our 14th Amendment jurisdiction, which, I mean, the system needs overhaul. It really does. The immigration system isn't working now. That's obvious. Boy, 20 million plus, they can't even count how many's over here. I mean, only thing immigration policy pertains to is the immigrants that's coming here that's trying to respect the law. The ones that have no respect for the laws in place ain't paying attention to none of them. But they just come in here, get the benefits, and send the stuff home, or trying to find a better way of life, which I can't blame them either. But we do need to come up with a better system, one that's constitutional and lawful. Thank you.
Okay, we will take an 8-minute break. That'll help us get back on time. And while break is on, there will be some videos playing, so you can enjoy those.